Hi everyone, it's Suzanne. Welcome back to Tuesday's Book Recommendations. Today I have 5 inspiring books for young girls. There has been a proliferation of books over the last few years for young girls about women in history, both famous and not famous, but inspiring women, both fictional and non-fictional, and we have certainly filled our libraries with many of these books. Today though, I wanted to focus on picture books that are good for young girls, so that is my selection, as well as a variety of those picture books. So the first one is Malalas Magic Pencil. You may be familiar with Malala. She has won a Nobel Peace Prize at this point for her work and spreading her voice about educating women in the world. And she unfortunately did speak out in Pakistan in her small town and was shot for doing so. She survived, thank goodness, and her voice is even more powerful. This particular book does not get into the hard details of her story, which I appreciate because this is for young children, and it introduces her story as well as the concept of educating girls in the world that are not educated. For those of us in North America, I think sometimes we take that for granted, that girls are educated. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's based on Malala's story. When she was a kid, she watched a show with a magic pencil and dreamed about getting a magic pencil to erase all the poverty that she saw, as well as change the settings of war and to educate young girls. Yeah, see, absolutely stunning. And it leaves up to you as a parent how much detail you want to tell about her story. As I mentioned, I'm just going to show you the one page at reference to the violence that she endured. And this is it here, and it says, "My voice became so powerful that the dangerous men tried to silence me, but they failed." And then again, like I said, you can choose to tell more details to your child if that's appropriate at this point. The second book I really wanted to include is called Brave Girl, and I wanted to include it because I haven't seen this story referenced in all the anthologies that I have been reading. Some of those anthologies repeat the same people over and over, like Amelia Earhart, for example. But this is about Clara and the Shirtwaist Makers Strike of 1909. Clara and her family moved to the United States. She could only speak Yiddish, but her dad couldn't get a job, and she could, along with thousands of other young girls who ended up in factories making dresses and shirts and that sort of thing, and they were treated abominably. So she ended up encouraging them to strike and helped form a union. She had a huge impact, and I love the stories about real life girls and women who made an impact and caused a change in the world despite the hardship. For example, she couldn't go to school in the day, and even after working in a factory from the morning till night, she still went to school. It really shows what a young girl can do, or any woman can do, if they set their mind to it. It's great to have those examples. That's why we read these books. And with that in mind, this is another one called She Persisted, Around the World, 13 Women Who Changed History. You may be aware of this because it was written by Chelsea Clinton. But I wanted to include it because, again, it is good for young children. And I have to say, I was introduced to characters or real life people and women in this book that I had never heard of myself. Another reason I appreciate the proliferation of these books today. It makes this information quite accessible, I find, in picture books, and then leads to further study. And I think once children are introduced to names, they recognize them later and appreciate the stories and the recognition, and they want to go further in their studies. I know for us, in our house, we appreciated the story about Viola Desmond because we actually live in Nova Scotia, Canada. So it had some personal connection there that my daughter immediately recognized, of course. The next book I'm going to talk about is based on real people and real facts in history, but it's told in a fictional storytelling format. And this is called A Race Around the World, the true story of Nellie Bly and Elizabeth Bisland. And if I didn't know the story was true, I wouldn't guess it. It's told in such a beautiful storytelling format. The illustrations are engaging, beautiful. These two ladies were journalists back in 1880. There was only 2% of the journalists were women, and I have to say I was surprised. I didn't think there would be any. But they ended up racing around the world. One worked for a newspaper, one worked for a magazine. They set them up against each other. One went east and one went west. And they traveled around the world faster than any man or woman, both fictional and non-fictional. The final book I want to talk about is a fictional book, and it's called Rosie, Revere, Engineer. And we have this both in audio and hard copy and love it. And these books really encourage really little girls to see themselves in non-traditional roles, such as engineering. And it's, of course, entertainment. The pictures are fun and cute. And it is a story about Rosie building things. Yeah, see? It's a fun time. Again, the audio is lovely too. Okay, those are the 5 books. They would make great Christmas presents if there's a little girl in your life. That's the end of today's video. I will see you on Friday with another bookish video.